ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, second part, that is as the spiritual aspirant or struggler or sadhak. In that mood, Sri Ramakrishna's life is being presented. And we are in the introduction and we are read up to 5 paragraphs. And they were very important. And we have seen that what a sadhak has to undergo while reaching the absolute truth. And that thing has not been described in the avatara because the devotees thought that that will make the devotion less. And then Saradananda Swamiji says that that is not true. Only when the beginning devotion you may feel like that. But when the devotion is mature, we do not require the glamour of the Aishwarya. We require to love the Lord like I, thou, like that. So, and a side issue arose that nobody's spiritual bhav should be disturbed. And there he has given the example that Sri Ramakrishna used to teach all his disciples together, but each separately. And then, in Swami Vivekananda's case, when this power to transmit spirituality arose in him, he just transmitted it into Vedanta Swami, and that made a loss to Vedanta Swamiji's process which was going on. But Sri Ramakrishna said that he is lucky because Sri Ramakrishna was still there and he would guide him accordingly. On the other hand, he told Swami Vivekananda that when it accumulates sufficiently, you will know how to use it, and Mother herself will show you that. Now, we are in para 6. To the class of devotees who think that the efforts of the incarnations of God for the attainment of truth or the fullest manifestation thereof in life are mere simulation, our answer is that we never heard the Master express that view. The paradigm says, when sporting like a man, the divine behaves like a man. Sporting means he is divine, but he has assumed the human body and form, mind, and so he behaves accordingly. Sport, because this is the special Leela of God, so it is called sport. Rather, we have heard him say often, when the divine sports as a human being, he behaves exactly like an ordinary man and experiences weal and woe and attains perfection by dint of personal effort. उद्यम, चेष्टा और तपस्या द्वारा सकल विषय पूर्णत्व लाभ करिते হয় नरेश ने सुख दुख भोग करिते. Okay, so if he behaves like a man, then he has to experience weal and woe, pain and pleasure, and attains perfection, okay, by dint of personal effort. उद्यम, चेष्टा और तपस्या. उद्यम, उद्यम is effort, personal effort, all right. Cheshta, endeavor, and tapasya, austerity. So these are the three essential parts of the sadhak bhav. Effort, endeavor, and austerity. Effort is actually the work being put out, while endeavor is the mental effort. And austerity is very necessary. The life of luxury will not help us. So these three are necessary. The history of the religions of the world bears witness to this. So all incarnations have done like that. And it is clear that were it not so, the very purpose of the incarnation of the divine would be defeated. That is the main thing. When we talk of incarnation, we just make him God and we remain separate. So why he is born as a man? What is the purpose? The purpose is to show man the ideal life. The purpose is to show man how he should struggle to get at the truth. And so, if that is not shown, then what is the use of incarnation? So the purpose becomes defeated if he does not do endeavor, effort, austerity. Then only the man learns that as a man what he has to do. Otherwise, just putting him as God and separating him from us, then he is living in Vaikuntha or Kailash or somewhere, why he should come down? So that is the main link of an incarnation. The master's teachings to the devotees can be broadly divided into two classes. Here, in English, the para heading is missing. दैव और पुरस्कार संबंधे ठाकुरेर मत. दैव is Deva predestination. Deva is predestination. And Purushaka, self-effort. Self-effort. So, we have to add the paraheading, master's opinion about predestination and self-effort. So these are the two ideas with which a man moves. What can I do? I am predestined to do everything. You will be surprised to find that in the recent times, in the last 10 years or 15 years maybe, in America, these people think is the latest philosophy. Though it is coming down to us from eternity. And they think that what a man can do, he can do only that which is predestined to do. So all these efforts which we are making, we are predestined to make that effort. So everything can be put into predestination. On the other hand, the strong party, those who have some will, they say it is self-effort we are doing this. So these are the two sides of life, spiritual also. And what Sri Ramakrishna has to teach us about that is very important. The master's teaching to the devotees can be broadly divided into two classes. The reader will realize it when we quote a few of these teachings. On the one hand, we find him saying to his devotees, I have cooked food, simply sit down to partake of it. That means no self-effort. This is the self-effort. Self-effort is to eat the food which he has cooked. That means he has made everything ready, what we just fall in line. The mold is prepared. Cast your own minds and get the form. Mold is prepared, put your mind into that and you will get that form. So the meaning is that just obey, follow what the Incarnation says. He has prepared the mold. You don't have to make effort. Everything is ready. You fit yourself into that. If you cannot do anything at all, give me your power of attorney. So this you find. If you cannot do anything, that means you cannot do anything. You should know that. And you should say, God will do everything. Give me the power of attorney. So I will do everything on your behalf. This is one set of instructions showing in a way predestination. So on and so forth. So many teachings of this type. And on the other hand, give up all desires one by one. So tyaga, effort in giving up desire. Not attaining something, but giving up desire. Give up lust and lucre and call on God. So these are the two main things to be given up. Lust, this subject relation to object is the last word is lust. And to help that, to achieve that, we requires money. And sometimes what happens in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it has been shown that money is necessary for life or for enjoyment. But the attachment on money becomes an independent issue. We know that some people dug a lot of money, paper money perhaps, into the pavement, into the flooring of the house. And after some years it got corrupted. Neither they will spend nor will they enjoy nor will they give to others. Why? So this is how the mind works. That sadheshana and sadhaneshana. So lucre, lust and lucre. And these catch the man and drown him in the ocean. So these desires must be given up. That is a tyaga, that is an effort, great effort. I have done all these 16 parts, do at least one part yourself, and incarnation is to be taken as an ideal example. And this is the answer, that we cannot do like you, we cannot do like you. All right. He is shown 16 parts, and if one part of it we have to do. We have to do one part. So we need not do as much as he has done, but following him, we have to make a self-effort. So these three are on the side of self-effort and some others, and the previous three are on the side of destiny, and so on. It seems that our progress in life is retarded because we very often fail to understand the significance of the Master's teachings and thus to choose between free will and predestination, self-effort and self-surrender. Free will, that means we have a free will and we have to work, or predestination. Same thing put in other words, self-effort and self-surrender. Actually, the solution will come. We have to make self-effort to surrender. We have to make self-effort in order to be able to surrender. I remember one portion of Rabindranath Tagore's poem, "Give me the strength, my Lord, to stand upright, give me the strength." Like that, several stanzas are there. And in the last he says, "Give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will with love." Give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will with love. So, the whole thing is to realize that I do not exist. The whole thing is to realize that my self-effort is only to destroy the self. Then it becomes self-surrender. So, Saradananda Swamiji says there are one set of instructions telling surrender. And there also I see some effort, because Thakur says, I have prepared everything, but you have to eat. I have made the mold, you have to fit yourself into it. And give me the power of attorney. So give is also an effort, tremendous effort. Now, that very paraheading continues. One day at Dakshineshwar, we had a long discussion with one of our friends, Swami Niranjanananda and Swami Saradananda, discussing with each other on free will and predestination, and went to the master for its true solution. The master amused himself with our boyish discussion for some time and then said seriously, "Is there anyone who has free will or anything like that? Is there anyone who has free will or anything like that? It is by God's will alone that everything has always happened and shall happen." I remember one example of that. One of our Swamis, Swami Nitya Bodhananda, Balan Maharaj, were in Geneva Center for 30 years. And then he was to retire from active work, and he was called to Belur Math. I was in Mumbai at that time, and one of our great Swamis, Swami Hiranmayananji, was the president of the Mumbai Ashram. So from Geneva, the Swami landed in Mumbai first. And Hiranmayananji is asking him, "Maharaj, what is your next plan?" He said, "Now I am going to Belur Math. Belur Math has invited. And then what Thakur has willed will happen. Because this is already fixed. Thakur himself has willed and you are being called to headquarters. So that much is fixed. And after that, what Thakur wills will happen. Hiranyaji said, Maharaj, is it not that we use our will all the time and only talk of Thakur's will? At that, from this old man who has worked 30 years in Geneva, tears started flowing from his eyes. And he said, brother, if one thing I have realized in life, it is that even a leaf of the tree does not move without his will. One thing I have realized in life is that any leaf of a tree, any leaf of any tree does not move without God's will. So, he has realized that God's will is supreme. And this you have to realize. So, Thakur is telling, is there any free will? That means you have to understand, you have to realize that there is no free will. It is by God's will alone that everything has always happened and shall happen. God is self-willed. Man understands it in the long run. Till then he has to go on making effort, jump here, there, and he will understand that he has to surrender. God's will is working. But then something has to be added. So, relative, this is called man's will is dependent on God's will. He has an amount of free will as given by God. So that also is God's will, that He has given you some free will. But then something has to be added. Just as when a cow, through an example, just as a brilliant example, just as when a cow is tied to a post with a long tether, it can stand at a distance of 1 cubit from it or of the whole length of the rope. So it is with the free will of man. So first telling that God's will everything happens, now the appearance of free will is there. And what is the place of it? And the place is that God has given that will. And man can use that will. A man ties a cow with the idea, let her lie down, stand, or move about wherever she wills within that area. So within that area, our will is working. Similarly, God has given man some power, and He has also given him freedom to use as much of it as he likes and in any way. So we can use our power to get more and more bound in the world. And we can use our power to try to become free from the bondage of the world. So anyway we like, that much power but we can use. This is why man feels he is free. So the free will is because God has given him limited free will. But the rope is fastened to the post. So that is, God has done. God has given a very limited scope for man's free will. And mark this, if anyone prays to him in all humility, so again praying, he may remove him to another place and tie him there, or he may lengthen the tether or even remove it completely from his neck. So mukti also is in God's hand. Giving more freedom. If we use properly, He may give us more will, more freedom. Or if we are not happy with that place, we pray to Him, He may tie us at some other place. This Logic will not work here. So this example explains everything. Thus instructed, we ask, then man has no hand in practicing religious discipline. Everyone may say, whatever I do is according to his will. So, understand, he may say that everything is according to his will. The master said, of what avail is it to say so? There are empty words. That means out of experience only this will realize. Till then we have to struggle. What avails it to say there is no thorn, no pricking? As soon as you touch a thorn, you cry out. If the practicing of sadhana were in the hands of man, all would have undertaken it. So see the dependent. You have to do something, but that depends upon his choice. But the choice is determined by something past work of his. But how is it that they can't? There is, however, one thing. He does not give one more power if the little that is given is not properly used. See, if it is used wrongly, so man, direction appears to be in man's hand. This is why individual effort and perseverance are necessary. Not only individual effort, but perseverance. You must stick to that. Then he will allow more freedom. Then he will make you free. So see, our wills are dependent on God's will, and if we use towards spiritual evolution, he gives more and releases. And if we use towards bondage, we get bound. So this direction, and it is not in our hands, he says. Otherwise, everyone would have made it. That means it depends upon our past karmas, our past karmas. This is why individual effort and perseverance are necessary. Don't you see? Everyone has to make some effort, however small, before he gets God's grace. So, God's grace comes if he sees our effort, small effort, but direction. When one does so, the experiences of 10 lives are crowded through his grace into one, and then all come to an end. So we have to get rid of past sanskaras and what we could have done in 10 lives. If we are working properly, God may make such arrangement that will finish in this very life itself. And everything comes to an end. Finally, we become free. But one has to make some effort. So come back to that. Listen to a story. So through another story, he is explaining little effort. The conversation between Vishnu and Narada on this topic. Puranic story. Vishnu, who eternally sports in Goloka, for some reason cursed Narada that he must go to hell. Narada's anxiety knew no bounds. He sang hymns in his praise and pleased him. Then he said, first he praised him, sang hymns. O Lord, I wish to know what and where hell is and how many kinds of hell there are. Please be gracious to tell me all about it. Vishnu then drew on the ground with a piece of chalk on the ground in Goloka. with a piece of chalk, heaven, earth, and hell as they were situated, and said, "This is heaven and this is hell." Narada said, "Is that so? My suffering in hell is then done here." Saying so, he rolled on the hell drawn on the ground, got up, and bowed down to the Lord. Vishnu smiled and said, "What's that? Can that be suffering hell?" Narada replied, "Why not? Lord, are not heaven and hell your creations? When you drew hell and called it such, the spot really became hell. And when I rolled on it, it was a real suffering of hell for me." Narada said so with deep faith. Deep faith from the heart, not shallow. So this itself is a very big step in the direction. And then that is why Vishnu said, "Be it so, tathastu." But Narada had to roll on that hell drawn on the ground. So not that zero effort. He had some effort. He did not have to go to hell, but he had to roll down. That little effort, that is suffering, was annulled. But Narada had to roll on that hell drawn on the ground with true devotion and faith. So true devotion, faith, and little effort. It was by making that little effort that his suffering was annulled. The Master explained it to us from time to time with the help of this story that there was thus room for perseverance and individual effort in the realm of grace. So from this you have to understand. From this we draw the conclusion that direction is the main thing, and complete love of God, faith in God's, and some effort. This will make God give us more freedom, and when you use it properly, He will make us free. So that is the sadhak bhav. Now to show this, the avatars have to do the idea. Incarnations of God assume imperfection of man to discover paths to liberation. Discover. That means the paths are there, but because they have not been used, they are lost, they have been lost. So the Lord, He has the power. So He discovers new paths suitable to the mind of man according to the yuga, according to the times, and shows it to man. And man has to do that. The incarnations of God have to experience to a great extent the spiritual blindness and circumscribed knowledge experienced by us. Circumscribed means limited knowledge, human mind. And spiritually we don't know anything. So incarnations also have to experience this, but there is something special in them. So that special is granted, but that does not remove them completely from us. Experienced by us when they assume human bodies and play their parts as human beings. That is not mithya bhan. In the drama, when you have taken a part, then your whole life is that part. They have to make efforts like us to discover the way out of spiritual darkness and ignorance. And although an awareness, that is the real difference, and although an awareness of their real divine nature now and then arises in their minds for a short time, it becomes veiled again till that path is discovered. So, beautifully analyzing an incarnation's life. They are incarnations. They are God. So that divinity arises in their mind now and again. But they are living as man. So it becomes cover. And they struggle to discover it, and it becomes available for us, and we walk. Till the path is discovered. Thus, for the good of the many, they have to assume a veil of Maya and grope their way like us on in the realm of light and darkness. Light and darkness is our life, and they have to grope. They also grope, and they find out and show the way to us. But as they are now the difference, real difference. But as they are not even an iota of hankering for selfish enjoyment in their mind. But that is the difference between incarnation and man. Our every action proceeds from our selfishness. Our every action proceeds from even desire for mukti is like a selfishness. And in incarnation, the mind is universal. That is why that is Ishwar Koti. Their mind is universal. There is nothing called an individual in them. That is the main thing. The body is individual. The mind appears to be individual. But within that individual body, incarnations, minds are universal. So there is no selfishness. There is no separate consciousness of I. So there is no selfishness. That is the big difference. And because of that, they discover things quickly. They have to struggle. They are in the body and mind. They have to struggle. But they see the light very quick. So that is the big difference. Huh? In all the sadhakas also we shall find this. In all the sadhakas. The more, in our case, degree, the more unselfish we are, the quicker we shall reach the reality. People do not understand this. They think we have to do meditation, do this, do that, and these days the fads of yoga and meditation to reduce tension. That is not the way at all. And that is why this karma yoga is taught in the Vedas and in Sri Ramakrishna Leelaprasanga. Practice. Unselfishness is not in words, it is in practice. So, they have no selfishness at all. We have everything selfish. So, to break that selfishness, we have to do unselfish work. They assumed a veil of Maya, but no selfishness. But as they have not even an iota of hankering for selfish enjoyment in their minds. Enjoyments they want for all, no selfish enjoyment. In their minds, they see more light in life than we do. And easily concentrating all the numerous powers within them. So, this ekagrata of the mind also depends upon less selfishness. The more unselfish we are, the easily our mind will become concentrated. And easily concentrating all the numerous powers within, all the numerous powers. There are so many powers, thinking, feeling, will and everything. Within them, solve life's problems in a short time and engage themselves in doing good to humanity. That is incarnations of life. There also we will see sadhana, but it will quickly finish. And then they will be ready to teach us. And because they are universal mind, from the beginning they teach also. But they do practice sadhana because there is no selfishness. They are able to complete it quickly and be ready to teach others. If incarnations are not thought of as human beings, we cannot get at the purpose of their lives and endeavor. So that point is taken again for discussion, that if we do not treat them as human beings, then we do not get anything from their life. Their lives do not remain as ideals for us. We do not learn anything from him. We just salute them and pray to them. That's all. So we must see them as their human aspect. And the main point in human aspect is the struggle for liberation. What else is human effort? One is, if the direction is wrong, human effort is getting oneself more and more bound. And the direction is right. Human effort is to come out of this ego. Human effort is to come out of these limitations. Human effort is to become free. And in that case, they become the model or the ideal. And that is why Thakur said, I have done 16 annas, you do 1 anna. And I have prepared everything. You follow me. In as much as our master, the God man, that unhappy word has come, it was proper in Saradananda's time. These days, this word, God appearing as man, God in man's body and mind. In as much as our master, the God in a man's body, has actually accepted human imperfections, much good will accrue to us from the study of those human feelings of his. So, he is showing ideal, we should learn that. And that is why we advise our leaders to study his divine nature, keeping before their eyes his human feelings. So, divine nature we will reach, we understand, but that is being expressed through the human mind. And so, we have to discuss that human mind, and so that we learn from that and the divinity becomes expressed. If we do not take him as one of us, we shall not be able to discover any purpose behind his superhuman effort, perseverance, etc., at the time of his sadhana. So in the first para, he had mentioned that these things are not shown at all. How we learn from them? Otherwise, the question will naturally arise, why there had to be such effort to realize the truth when he was eternally perfect? And we cannot escape the idea that his terrible effort, threatening his very life, was but a sham, only appearance. Threatening his very life. You know, he took up the sword hanging in the Kali temple and went to cut himself because he had not realized God. So he has shown the yearning, how 10% yearning is. That is not all. His effort, steadfastness, that perseverance, steadfastness in his effort. We have to learn all these things. And renunciation, vairagya is very necessary. You cannot stick to the world and realize God. No, no, no. Renunciation for the purpose of firmly implanting the high ideals in his life with a view to realizing God. So, that also is so wonderful in his life. We cannot imitate that, but we have to learn, we have to follow. He gave up a clay and money, saying that money is clay, clay is money. Will give rise to despair rather than hope in one heart. Oh, he could do it because he was God, we can't do. Like that it should not come. Making the dispelling of ignorance from our life an impossibility. So despair comes, then it becomes impossible. We have to struggle, zeal, we had seen. We have to struggle, perceive with a tremendous, joyful effort every time. Now, one more point he is making, important point. Suppose we depend upon his grace. He should understand our misery. Unless he has taken a human mind, how will he understand our misery? So from another side, he is bringing the human aspect of the master is necessary. Unenlightened souls can understand an incarnation of God only as a human being. So, how we understand him as God? By some supernatural actions. Then some charlatans also will show some supernatural actions. Dependent as we are on the Master's grace, we must accept him as being endowed with human feelings like ourselves. So we love him, he should respond, he should give, he should love us. Actually, we will find he loves us more than we can love him. For is it not his sympathy with our sorrow that leads him to come forward to remove them? Therefore, from whatever angle we see, we have no other course than to think of him as having human feelings. In fact, until we ourselves are free from all kinds of bondage and are established in the nature of the attributeless Brahman, we shall have to think of and accept God, the universal cause, and his incarnations as being endowed with human feeling. Other side, anthropomorphic. That means we try to conceive God. And we conceive through our human mind. So our conception itself is faulted. Now an incarnation is actually God and in human mind. So we can understand him as God in man. And then we can understand what is God in the abstract form. So there is a saying, Devo Bhutva Devam Yaje. Unless you become God, you cannot worship God in his real essence. I will tell you some beautiful thing about it. In the Mahimna Stotra, for example, there is a stanza that Vishnu, the all-pervading God, wanted to worship Shiva out of love. And he made a vow that I will worship Shiva with 1,000 lotus flowers. And then Shiva himself stole one of the flowers, or some maya or something happened. He had collected 1,000 lotus flowers. But when he started offering, he saw it is 999. Then what he did, he thought, I am translating a stanza in Swami Vivekananda. Then he thought people call that Hari has lotus eyes. So let me pluck one of my eyes and put that as the 1,000. This devotion resulted in getting him that Sudarshan Chakra by which he protects the whole world. Hariste Sahasram Kamala Balimadaya Padayor Yade Kone Tasmin Nija Udaran Netra Kamalam Gato Bhaktyudrekam Parnati Masau Chakra Vapusha Trayanam Rakshaye Tripurahara Jagarti Jagatam Rishome Mustotra. So only God can worship God, that is the meaning. God is universal cause, Srishti Chiti Pralayakarta, and his incarnations as being endowed. So Srishti Chiti Pralayakarta also has to be thought of with human mind. We have to compulsorily because we are thinking through human mind. And his incarnations as being endowed with human feeling. The saying, becoming God, one should worship God is indeed true. If you have reached the nirvikalpa plane of consciousness by virtue of samadhi, then alone will you be able to realize the real nature of God. Swamiji and his disciples understood really Thakur as God only after nirvikalpa samadhi. And then Swamiji sings, Dasatava Janame Janame Dayanide. So, he is absolute incarnation. This also Swamiji understood after his Nirvikalpa Samadhi. We are lucky enough because Swamiji has told us that by virtue of Samadhi, then alone you will be able to realize the real nature of God. So we find in Arjuna and everybody, they know that he is God. But what God means itself, they do not know. Girish Babu believes Thakur is God. But what is that God, he does not know. So what is God, we shall know only after Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Till then we have our own ideas of God, which are very much limited by our human consciousness. Much better than that is the life of the incarnation. Because he is God in human, with human mind. Then alone will you be able to realize the real nature of God, have a correct conception of Him, and truly worship Him. But if you have not been able to do so, your worship will be but an attempt at ascending to that divine plane. So, whatever we conceive we have, we worship, that helps us to grow and making yourself fit for the true worship of God. So, he does not say that don't worship God. Worship God with whatever faith you have, with whatever concept you have, that will make you grow. Worship in better way, that will make you still grow, and that will itself help you to become free and really worship you, as Thakur's disciples did. And making yourself fit for the true worship of God. Till then, you will continue to consider God, the cause of the universe, to be a human being endowed with extraordinary power. So you'll only see the powers, but our mental conception will be human conception. That is, you will apply on God. You will see more powers, that's all. God takes on a human body out of compassion for humanity. Therefore, it is beneficial to study the lives of divine incarnations as human beings. Because we cannot understand the abstract idea of God, God out of compassion becomes avatar, and so we must study him through his human body and mind into the divinity. Persons who can ascend to the state of Godhood can truly worship him as the divine being are very few. Weak aspirants like ourselves have been till now very far from that state. Saradananda Swamiji, identifying with the reader, is stating like that. Thus, having compassion on ordinary mortals like ourselves and desiring to accept our heartfelt worship, God descends to the plane of human beings. He wants to accept our worship. We cannot worship in his abstract state. So he becomes man and accepts our worship. Heartfelt worship. Putting on the appearance of a God-man by assuming a human body and human feelings. We are in an advantageous position to study the history of the Master's spiritual striving in comparison with that of the God-man of the past. That is how he began the chapter. That is not described. For the Master himself delineated in detail from time to time the facts of his sadhana period of his life in such glowing colors that they have remained firmly imprinted on our mind. So Thakur knew this, All the incarnations knew, but their devotees are suppressed. And here, Thakur has repeatedly told about his sadhana. And then only we can follow him to some extent. Again, the wonderful play of his life as an aspirant had been acted before all the people of the Kali temple just before we went to him. So there are evidences. And many of those people were still there. So we had also the opportunity of hearing from them some of those events. That apart, before we begin to study this, now last sentence, that apart. Say jao. That apart. Anyway, here in the last sentence, he is telling a completely new point. You may say, by the way, anyway, before we begin to study the history of those events, Master's life, it is good to rehearse once in a general way the fundamental principles of sadhana. That means we understand sadhana through Thakur's life. But we should know what is sadhana. Then we have the eyes to study Thakur. That is the main thing. General way, the fundamental principles of sadhana. So we shall add a brief discussion on it. Because he will show in that chapter, because we have peculiar ideas not only about God, but about the sadhana. And what we generally understand by sadhana, something extraordinary, something peculiar. We think it is sadhana. That is not sadhana. The very definition of sadhana, Sadhana Swami will bring in a brilliant way from Thakur himself. So that we shall study on the Monday. We have come to the end of the introduction. Now chapter 1 we shall study on Monday. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Yate Namaha. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Jaya